welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the full moon in Taurus. And this is for the 31st of October, 2020. So just a quick sharing for everybody. I recorded this video at length earlier today. And firstly, for the first 20 minutes, I noticed that the microphone was switched off, or the mic was on mute, and then I restarted it again, only to come to the end of the video and realize that it wasn't on record. So a good hour's worth of content lost, or working on content was lost. I planned on, and I did do an entire transit update all the way from the 31st, which is today, till the 15th, and that didn't record. So in response to that, I know this is not before the full moon, but here are my reflections, at least our reflections, and hopefully that provides you with something to reflect on and some thoughts around this full moon energy. So it'll be a bit of a shortened update, but we will do another video, transit update, where we'll go through the transits and the aspects being made from now until the next new moon happening on the 15th, including Mars direct and Mercury direct. Okay. So this is a quick, short little update, just looking at the full moon and the reflections of it. All right. So let's actually move ahead. Before I jump into anything, I just want to give some information today and tomorrow, so the weekend special. We have got a 20% reduction on all of our courses and readings, and all you have to do is just type in the code ALLHALLOWS20, and this will all be in the description and the comments section below. Okay, so if you've wanted to study astrology with us, invest in our school, if you want to get readings with us, look into some of the workshops that we've got recorded, like the Saturn workshop, this would be a great time to use the code and get a reduction on that process. Okay. All right. So this image here comes to mind. Jen found it, and I fell straight in love with it, in the sense of how it captures the essence of the energy at the moment with this full moon in Taurus. So if you're familiar with evolutionary astrology, you'll know that one of the psychological and emotional dynamics that comes along with the Taurus archetype is the feeling of, or the experience of being looking, or the frog in the well psychological and emotional pattern. And so what this means is that if you have a look here, this is the area of life that we get exposed to, and then we don't actually get to see what's occurring outside this spectrum. Okay, over here, it's only this area that we get to see. And so the Jeffrey Wolf Green used to give the analogy of when we, Pluto in the second house, that we would be very attuned to and very connected to our own values and resources and needs, but we would have a limiting perspective on the rest of life, because we would be so closed in on our personal, sphere of perception. And so what would happen is the Scorpio archetype, which is the polarity point of Taurus, comes in and creates a sudden rug being pulled under your feet, like a sudden shock. And it is this reaction from the Scorpio archetype that induces a state of expanding one's horizons with the Taurus. In other words, to break out of the frog in the well syndrome, that there's more in life than is just what's in your comfort zone. And this is very much what this energy is about, in the sense that we will have experiences of sudden change, right? Sudden openings that will come through an insight, a flash of understanding, a perspective shift, a shock, that to shock us out of a comfort, right? A value structure, and to really open us up to explore other and newer dimensions of reality that we may have not actually thought about or wanted to invest any time and energy into, because it didn't pass our sphere of reality, or we didn't consider it to be important. And while this image contains the frog in the well experience, this ladder over here perfectly speaks to the rest of the chart. And so if we go onto the actual chart itself, here you got, this was at 4 o'clock this afternoon when I actually recorded the video. You've got Moon Uranus conjunction in opposition to the 8th house Sun aspect, right? Scorpio aspect. So there straight away, it's that shock that leads to a sudden change that opens up our horizons. So the dynamic of this energy from now until the new moon is very much about this, right? Like really pulling us out of our blinkers, as it were. But it is not, from my point of view, actually the case in the sense that we have done something wrong or that we have been blind or etc. I think it's more, and this is the message here, it's more about breaking out of the shackles of perspectives and truths that have been very limiting in their scope. And it is to, with the bird that you saw in this previous picture here, it's actually advocating, whoops, let me go back. It's actually advocating the freedom from the limiting scope and perspective. It is the expanding beyond, the breaking out of, the removing the limitations within the perspectives of cultural conditioning. And the reason why we talk about cultural conditioning here is because of this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, its closing phase. Remember in the most recent video I did where I talked about Neptune square the nodes, and I said that the resolution for what we're trying to do here is work through past cultural patterns of thinking and belief systems that are limiting in their nature. And so we are re-experiencing cultural flashbacks and truths that will then create the type of environment in which we need to then break out of those limiting belief patterns, thinkings, and perspectives. And so this energy is about a complete awakening. And it's not something where, oh, all of a sudden everybody just goes, oh, yes, that's correct. Let's awaken from this thing. I don't mean it like that. I mean it more in the sense that we've become progressively aware of the need to shift the narrative within our culture. The energy right now is now advocating for an entire cultural pattern of changing. Right. So this is a collective energy moving through, as opposed to an individual person saying, you know what, these patterns of thinking or these value structures seem very prehistoric to me, outdated, and we've got to move forward with it. And then you go and talk to 3 or 4 people and they're like, what are you talking about? Now this energy is forcing a collective impulse for these experiences to happen. And they all obviously happen independently and individually in our lives. So our stories that are related to this shift in perspective is unique to you. So you've got to look at where this is landing in your natal chart. So I encourage you to pull out your natal chart and check in with where these planetary alignments are happening and what houses they're landing in and how this is specific to you. That's how you can take this energy or this full moon report and use it for yourself, right? So it's very clear here with the North Node in Gemini conjuncting the Jupiter aspects that, again, this is about not seeing that as we change the narrative, we are moving towards and moving into the potential of something fresh and undefined and unexpressed and unexplored ultimately. And again, Pluto, Jupiter coming into play, this is a closure. This is a culmination. This is an ending of. So it's not a coincidence that the moon hits Uranus with this full moon pattern and initiates the shift in narrative, right? The perspective change for all of us internally. And again, if you notice here, you've got the Venus archetype in opposition to Chiron. And so as we kind of feel the shift in perspective, we also come into a misalignment with outdated narratives, social narratives, and values. And in a call today with the Patreon group in the Neptune group, every single month we have a private group call with anybody that's on our Neptune membership from our Patreon group. And one of the Patreon members was sharing this really, really cool thing that almost to a certain degree is probably the reason why for some reason the video didn't work when I previously recorded. And what this is what I was actually trying to say in the previous video. But he has a way of saying it that hopefully resonates with you guys. This Chiron opposed the Venus archetype. And again, the planetary ruler of Uranus is Venus. So if you want to read Uranus moon opposition to the sun in context to how it's playing out in the chart, you also have to synthesize the Venus in opposition to Chiron aspect. Because again, it all ties in, everything ties in, and it goes all the way back to Mars retrograde. And this is where the shift in perspective is occurring. So the experience here is that we all are shifting internally within ourselves. And as we're shifting internally within ourselves, our perceptions and value structures that are changing within ourselves are having a conflict with the social narrative, the outside conditioning pattern. In other words, the conditioning pattern from societal conditioning that we may have internalized with ourselves, and or how culture itself has defined truth that we all collectively agreed on. While everybody begins to shift the narrative, so then naturally does there become a conflict or a crisis between the old and the new. And so this is, very much associated with the patterns of values that no longer represent an expanded scope of truth. In other words, Uranus, the moon in conjunction, revealing to us that there is a limiting perspective that is forcing and expressing itself through a feeling of feeling small and wanting to expand and grow beyond things, to break out of the mold. And the Venus opposed Chiron is showing up as the dynamic tension between leading a new way and feeling uncertain about that, because of course it's never been explored before, and the interface with conditioning that reflects a kind of schism, right? A distortion where it says, oh, this is the old and I no longer want that anymore. And so the energy and the impulses promote a further exploration, a further movement towards moving in a new direction and letting go. Sun in Scorpio, trining Neptune in Pisces, right? A letting go process, a dissolving process. And even more particularly the dissolving process around how we forgive the experiences of the past in ourselves. In other words, we forgive judgments on ourselves. We forgive and apply more self-compassion and self-value to our experience. And we give credit to it. And we say it was real and it was important for us and that it's not to be shamed, right? We're healing that shame pattern as well of how cultural conditioning would have shamed you if you did something wrong, as opposed to, a lack of inspiration and creativity and allowing people to feel that their lives matter. Basically, your life matters. And that while it might not necessarily be the most Hollywood outlook of success, even though that's complete nonsense, your life is still just as important, and it has meaning, and you're here to live your experience. And it's about really connecting with that deeply and nourishing that attunement from your ego perspective, which affirms your validation of yourself and the realization of the soul story that has come to experience this and witness this journey at a very deeper level. And it's about connecting with that. Okay. So that's the message that I wanted to share with this chart over here. I really hope it comes across very loud and clear, everybody. The quote that I want to use to end off today's conversation is done by Robert Kiyosaki, who, fair enough, is somebody that's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if I'm not mistaken. And he goes, if you want to change your life, begin by changing your words, right? North Node, Gemini, Jupiter in conjunct. Start speaking the words of your dreams, right? Neptune square the nodes, of who you want to become, right? So attuning into the values of what is really real and legitimate for you. Not the fear, not the words of fear and failure, right? Oh, I fear this because what happens if I get it wrong, or fear of failure. I'm never going to get it right. I've got to meet up to some perfectionist attunement, and really coming into owning just your truth as it is, and being okay with yourself and with life as this is your story. Okay. All right. So I hope that resonates with everybody. And before I end off, I just want to let everybody know again, just this Halloween kind of experience, or Hallows 2020, for anybody that wants to work with us. We've got a 20% discount on our work. Okay. And follow our Instagram. We've got Instagram, put the links in the description. If you're interested in our Patreon page, I'll put the links in the description as well. And I really hope that everybody's full moon experience is, fairly rewarding. And the idea here is to just pay attention to any flashes of insight or shifts in perspective that really help you change the narrative from the old. Okay. All right, everyone, have an amazing day, and I'll speak to you again in another video. Bye.